Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I just got off of work. I'm a little late, but hey, better. At least I'm here. Unlike some hoots who promise a morning radio and never do it. You know who you are. Anyway, it's episode 31, $9 podcast. I'm Drewski. Hi, how you doing? Repping the cleaner this evening. Well, evening for me because technically it is because of my schedule. And it's episode 31 of the $9 podcast, and I was, thinking about all the discourse over Uncle Alan retiring. And it sort of hit home a little bit for me because it should hit home for the reason there's been such a visceral reaction is because everybody has to deal with it eventually. Because nobody here is getting out of life alive. I read that on a matchbook cover somewhere. The optimum thing is to retire on your own terms. You don't want to be forced to retire or have the decision taken out of your hands. Listening to the Uncle Alan run-in on TalkNShop a couple days ago. When you brought up, I don't want to be, you did not want to be like the Japanese legends that stayed too long. And that's like, that's when it hit me. It's like, no, you don't, because it's real simple. It's like people who love wrestling, really, really, really love wrestling, can't quit it. They can't quit it no matter how much they try. They always come back. They can't get it's too ingrained in them, right? And it's a bit of you can say it's an addiction of a sort, but it's the whole retirement thing, the knee-jerk reaction is usually, okay, wrestling, the whole rigmarole about the whole legend about how wrestling retirement is not worth the paper it's printed on. You see Terry Funk, see Ric Flair, but a lot of those situations, especially with Flair, it's basically comes a point where it's like you need the money, right? You didn't really hold on to it. It's like it's like Mick Foley always says, that's why Mick Foley used to get a lot of crap for being frugal on the road. It's like it's not how much you make it, it's not how much you make it, it's how much you save, right? And a lot of the legends kind of did not subscribe to that aphorism, and as a result, they're basically damaging their long-term health. Just to financially take care of themselves, right? And it shouldn't be that way. It's like it shouldn't be that way. It's like it's one of the reasons why the Cauliflower Alley Club is so important. If you don't know what a Cauliflower Alley Club is, it's an organization made up of former wrestlers who help out wrestlers in their on bad times. Following bad times, help them. They support them. They do what they can to take care of them. It's sort of like wrestler veteran affairs. If there was a wrestling VA hospital, which there should be, you would think there, you think there should be, but that's not that's a discussion for another day. But they do good work. They do good work. The reason the whole retirement things kind of like hit people a long way is because everybody has to deal with it, like I said, in their lifetime. It hit home real. Uncle Alan's retirement consignment really hit home with me because am I comparing myself? Well, not comparing myself to Uncle Alan. Well, God forbid, right? I mean, with all due respect, it's like my situation. It's like I'm 37 years in, going on year 37. We're doing with my job. I have people past 2-3 years start coming up to me when I'm working and say, "Hey, when are you retiring? When are you retiring?" And you never gave it a second thought. But past year, 6 months, a year now, especially since I turned 59, I'm like, it's like the retirement age is 70. Retirement age is 70. That's it's speeding up like a freight train, right? And you have to start getting your affairs in order now. In my situation, just start getting your affairs in order now, so you don't have to keep coming back, like coming back to like a job you may have aged out of, right? In my situation, it's basically it comes I'm aging out of my job. It happens. It's like it's basically it's like, do you really want a guy pushing carrying around carrying an AARP card in his wallet to deal with people trying to do beer runs at 2-3 in the morning? No, that's unreasonable. It's like and the longer I stay, the chances of getting robbed or get higher and higher, right? Because I happen to have one of those jobs that's like apparently one of the most dangerous jobs to have. It's a graveyard shift at a convenience store. You see you hear all these tales about people getting killed at stores, over minuscule amount of money, and in point of fact, right? But it happens, and it's like you're constantly living like constantly wondering if the next person coming in the potential customer coming into your store is actually there to actually buy something or end your life. You don't it's a bad situation. It's a bad mindset to have. I'd rather not have it, right? Sort of like influences certain decisions I make, right? And in terms of in terms of the wrestling business, wrestling retirements and stuff, at least Uncle Alan knew that it was time, right? Better to get out early than get forced out or end up because bump card isn't, his bump card was filling up, right? He especially his style, all the wars in Japan, all the wars in Japan and like all X Division matches in TNA, have taken a toll on him. He sort of hides it well, but you have to think there is like residual buildup, right? And it could be like there's always a chance, like the next time you get stepped on, or you do like an Adam Cole, like jump off ramp and like shatter an ankle, right? Like some sort of freak thing. And older you get, it's like the recovery time's longer, right? Cardio is getting harder to do, right? And you don't want to get to the point where you're like ingesting like stuff you're not supposed to try and keep up with the young kids, right? That's that leads to disaster. So I'm glad Uncle Alan is stepping away. The Hoots seem to think it's going to, it's a typical wrestling thing where it's like he'll be gone for a year and a half, and probably be back when his son is like ready to start his career, and sort of team with him like Gallows is doing with CJ, his son. And you can see that it's like you can figure, it makes sense, right? You're off to heal, right? You're off to heal. It's like all about the daily bumps and bruises, and aches and pains that a wrestler goes through, right? Eventually they go away. They go away, right? And the talk of him doing the mentoring at NXT, the new generation, and hopefully the WWE doesn't blow that opportunity to have some, we have that much talent willing to help out, and people ignore it. That's on them. It's like it's like going into a library and it's like ignoring the classics and getting like the newest the newest shiny book. But, you can always learn something from the classics, right? That's the analogy I go with. Actually, I kind of like it. Like I can see where people are going to be doubting. It's human nature. You're going to doubt, right? Especially the past 5-10 years. People, the Mark Henry fake retirements with the salmon jacket and everything, right? It's like some smartasses will say that, okay, Uncle Alan laid his gloves down, yes, laid down his jacket, yes, but he didn't take off his boots, and that's that's time-honored tradition, old school traditions. Take out and leave your boots off on the ring, and that goes back to like actual wrestling, actual like collegiate wrestling. Some people some people point it to that and go, aha. It means he's not quite sure. He's not quite certain yet. Right? Then you hear, her Ferg, good brother Ferg, be like, his reaction to the Oklahoma's retirement is like, hey, you know what? I'm kind of on the same boat. So I don't have much time left. So this might be my last run. The Bucks and Kenny have been saying it's their last run for the past 8 to 10 months. But they've said it a couple times before, and people have, it's like the man who boy cried wolf in that situation. But again, everybody's it's getting older, right? And it's another reason why people aren't handling it well, because they don't want to be reminded that time passes. They want to remember the talent as they were. It's like, be selfish about it. Oh, I wish you could wrestle forever. They have a backlog of stuff that you can watch, right, and learn from, and build upon. I mean, that's all that really matters, really.